Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating connection happening right now in Washington. We're going to unpack how two bills from 2026 that seem totally unrelated, one dealing with this massive global foreign policy package, and the other focused laser-tight on individual domestic voter registration, actually link up to form a single, unified political playbook. Let's just dive right into the raw source documents and see all these pieces fit together.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the America First agenda. Second, reshaping foreign policy. Third, the Save America Act. Fourth, the ensuing paperwork problem. And finally, the high-stakes legislative battles tying the whole shebang together.
Section 1. The America First Agenda, Shaping a New Legislative Era. So to really grasp the current climate in Washington, we have to look at this major legislative push currently underway to codify a deeply conservative agenda. And this official header right here illustrates where that agenda officially lives on paper. This is Chairman Tom Cole's 2027 National Security, Department of State, and Related Programs Appropriations Bill, or NSSRP for short. Now, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill funding bill. It's basically a sweeping blueprint that explicitly aims to completely realign United States foreign policy.
Section 2. Reshaping Foreign Policy, the NSRP Bill.
Let's zoom in on the specific financial goals baked into this package, because honestly, the numbers tell a very specific story. The NSRP bill provides a total discretionary allocation of $47.32 billion. That's a massive number, right? But interestingly enough, it actually represents a $2.69 billion cut, a 6% decrease from the previous year. And that reduction is a highly deliberate strategy. The authors are aiming to redefine foreign assistance by prioritizing self-sufficiency and U.S. national security, while actively trimming what they view as wasteful global spending.
So where exactly is all that money going? And maybe more importantly, where is it not going? Well, the bill maintains some seriously robust funding for strategic allies. We're talking $3.3 billion for Israel and $500 million for Taiwan. It also actively targets adversaries, putting $400 million on the table to counter Chinese Communist Party influence. But absolutely crucial to this bill's DNA are its prohibitions. It explicitly bans any funds for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, climate change mandates, and what the text calls radical gender ideologies. It completely defunds the UN Population Fund, and it even plays hardball on border issues, literally withholding funds from Mexico until the Secretary of State certifies they are delivering water owed to the United States.
Section 3. The Save America Act, Domestic Impact.
All right, we are shifting gears now from macro global policy all the way down to the micro domestic front, specifically how you actually register to vote. This brings us to the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, known widely as the Save America Act. To really understand this bill, we have to look at its core engine, documentary proof of United States citizenship. Basically, this means Americans would be strictly mandated to present physical, valid documentation establishing their U.S. citizenship in person when registering to vote in federal elections. And that even applies if you're just updating an existing registration because of a move or a name change.
So what actually counts as proof? Accepted documents include valid U.S. passports, military IDs, but only if combined with a service record proving U.S. birth, and real ID-compliant licenses that specifically indicate citizenship. But notice what gets rejected here. Standard driver's licenses, tribal IDs, or military IDs without those birth records are a no-go, because they can be issued to legal residents who aren't necessarily citizens. And here's the real kicker. Currently, only 5 states actually issue enhanced driver's licenses that meet this ultra-strict citizenship indication requirement.
Section 4. The paperwork problem, the disenfranchisement debate.
As you can imagine, this strict documentation rule has sparked a massive controversy over who exactly gets caught in the bureaucratic net. Just look at this data point, 69 million. According to an analysis of U.S. Census and Pew Research data, that is the estimated number of married American women whose birth certificates no longer match their current legal surnames. Under the SAVE Act, those 69 million voters couldn't just flash a birth certificate. They'd need to track down extra paperwork, like a marriage certificate, or navigate a secondary state-level affidavit process just to prove they are who they say they are.
Legal experts have been really quick to sound the alarm on this hurdle. Tracy Thomas, a constitutional law professor, points out that this paperwork amounts to an additional cost, administrative burden, and an extra penalty that other voters simply don't have to deal with.
And there's a pretty fascinating political irony embedded in the data here. Research shows that conservative and Republican-leaning women are actually statistically more likely to have changed their surnames after marriage, with a recent survey showing 79% of women in opposite-sex marriages taking their husband's name, which means, practically speaking, this burden could heavily impact the very voter base supporting the bill. Now, proponents of the bill are quick to point out that a passport easily solves this whole name-matching issue. And fair enough, but let's look at the economic reality for a second. Passports are a valid workaround, for sure, but they're also a luxury a lot of folks just can't afford. In households earning under $50,000 a year, a whopping 80% do not hold a valid passport. So for a huge chunk of lower-income Americans, the passport workaround simply isn't an option on the table.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core tension of the whole debate. On one side, we have the stated legislative need, preventing widespread non-citizen voting in federal elections. But on the other side, we have the historical data. For instance, a massive review of over 2 million registered voters in Utah found exactly one confirmed non-citizen registration. Furthermore, when Kansas tried a very similar law, it ended up blocking roughly 31,000 eligible citizens, that's 12% of their applicants, before a federal court stepped in and struck it down. So the entire debate really centers on this massive disparity between the stated threat and what the historical data actually shows us.
Section 5. High-stakes legislative battles, forcing the issue. Okay, so if a bill is this controversial, how on earth do you get it passed? Well, use extreme political warfare. Enter a piece of aggressive Washington jargon you might not have heard of, MIRVing. Literally named after the military concept for missiles with multiple warheads, MIRVing is a legislative maneuver where a stalled, highly controversial bill gets bolted directly onto a must-pass spending or defense bill. The entire goal? To force the opposing party into a corner. You either vote for the controversial bill, or you vote against funding the government or the military. And this is the exact tactic House Speaker Mike Johnson utilized to tie the SAVE Act, that 2027 NSRP appropriations package we talked about earlier. Let's walk through the sheer chaos this caused back in 2026, because it's a wild ride. The SAVE Act barely squeaked through the House in February. By March, conservatives insisted on attaching it to Department of Homeland Security funding. That actually triggered a partial government shutdown that left TSA agents working without pay and caused massive airport delays across the country. In June, the Senate straight up rejected the amendment, and an attempt to bolt it to the National Defense Authorization Act failed too. Finally, in July, the House successfully used that MIRVing tactic to merge the SAVE Act with the State Department and foreign policy spending package, setting the stage for a monumental showdown.
You know, despite incredible turbulence and even initial holdouts from conservative members like Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who initially blocked the rule, the SAVE Act really became the ultimate line in the sand. As political analysts noted, it became a rare rallying point for a divided GOP. They were literally willing to leverage massive multi-billion-dollar global foreign policy bills just to ensure this specific domestic voter registration law made it to the Senate floor. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly vital question to consider. If the new normal in Washington is that must-pass funding bills meant to secure our borders, fund our allies, and pay our TSA agents, become the default vehicles for forcing through highly partisan election laws, how will this reshape the future of the American ballot box? It's a profound shift in how laws are made in this country, and ultimately, how those laws will dictate who gets to vote. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I highly encourage you to keep questioning and keep learning. I'll see you next time.